Chicago, Chicago, that toddling town, Chicago, Chicago, I'll show you around.
The corner was our magic, our music, our politics. Fires raised as tribal dances and war cries broke out on different corners. Power to the people.
And just say Shop City. If you don't know by now, I'm talking about Chi-Town. And just say Shop City, Shop City.
Well, welcome back, everyone. We have our honored guest with us today, Desmond Owusu. And if you all are just meeting him for the first time, there's a lot to unpack with this brother. He might be small in stature, but he's mighty in what he brings. Yeah, I said that for a reason, you know. He is really doing some great things here in the Chicagoland community and really represents the culture and community of Ghana. He is the secretary of the Ghanaian National Council, and he is also an educator. He's a designer, and he's really like bridging a gap up between cultures. So I'm not going to say very much more than that. I'll let him give us more information about that, and we can kind of take it from there.
Yes, well, like I said, thank you all for having me. Definitely feel honored to be here. You know, it's just great to share community with like-minded people. So happy to be here. Some of the work that I do, it kind of ranges. I think you hit pretty much, most of it. But I grew up in the arts, and I grew up doing a lot, and I think that kind of just continued to be my story, as I got older. But now, what I currently do, I'm still in the arts. I am the co-director of Azania Drum, which is a youth ensemble where we focus on the djembe orchestra, and through West African drum and dance, we teach leadership, discipline, as well as teamwork. I'm also the director of cultural infusion and programs at Beta Shabazz International Charter School. I also have two streetwear brands by the name of We All We Got and Chicago Girls Do It Better. And like you mentioned, I'm the youth secretary assistant inside of the Ghana National Council. So yeah, it's kind of, I'm kind of used to kind of doing a lot of different things. I feel like I was raised that way, so I'm happy to still be active in doing those types of things.
Now, how did you get started in the Ghanaian National Council? What is that all about, and what do you do there?
Yep. So I'm actually, as far as being a member, I'm new to it. But my mother is very active in the Ghanaian community. So within Ghana, Ghanaians started coming to Chicago. Really, I would say to Chicago. I want to say like around probably like 60s, 70s. My dad was a part of that first crew that came in the early 70s, and he also, brought my mom in like 75. He came in 73. I believe the Ghana National Council was created, and don't quote me on this, but I want to say 70s and during the 70s or the 80s. And the main goal of it was to help Ghanaians that was coming over from the continent to pretty much help adjust, as they came to the States. Since then, the Ghana National Council has done, I think, a great job of maintaining Ghanaian culture, while being here in Chicago. The Ghana National Council is also made of different tribes in Ghana. So you have the Santamine organization, you have the Gandangbe, you have the Fanti Benevolent. So, there's a lot of all of the tribes have their own organization, and they're part of the Ghana National Council.
And which tribe are you?
Asante is sort of Santamine. My mom is Fanti and Ashanti. But my dad is 100% Ashanti. But my mom is like a social butterfly. So she did her time within the Fanti Benevolent Society, and also she's still very close to the Santamine organization. And then as a youth, I kind of naturally had to it's like if your mom goes to church, you're like one of the kids there. So I was at the meetings, or whenever there were like funerals or life celebrations, we would have to dance adwa, which is which is a traditional dance, you know, that usually is done when somebody passes. But just learning that, you know, as a kid, I think kind of just opened me up, you know, into like accepting the culture and acknowledging the culture and knowing that I was a part of it, you know. And I think that just kind of like automatically put me there, you know. So, you know, as I'm getting older, I'm just like, all right, well, my parents are getting older, you know, my uncles and aunties are getting older. We're the next ones that have to keep this going, you know, which is why I was like, all right, well, let me, you know, try to figure out how I can kind of also help out on the organization side. And my younger sister, she was already doing it. It's 4 of us on my mom's side. So I have 2 older sisters. I'm the third, and then my youngest sister. So my youngest sister, she's been participating in GNC, Ghana National Council, for a few years. And this year she was doing it, so I was like, yeah, let me step up and, you know, help her out. Even though she didn't need my help, but, you know, this is my little sister, and I also wanted to just, like I said, just kind of step up as well.
So originally I thought you were from Ghana proper, but you were born and raised here in Chicago.
Yes.
Now, we recognize that there's like a big, like a cultural gap between like people from Africa, or Meditai as we call it, and then people that are here, born and raised in the United States. Even though we may say we're African American, the culture gap is like huge.
Very big.
And it's something that we consciously are trying to work on to bridge that gap. And it seems like you're doing many things in that arena to help bridge that gap. What would you even speak on when we talk about that gap?
I think it's a huge conversation. You know, I think it's one that makes me feel, when I think about the conversation, I think about how fortunate I am to be exposed to, or I guess I know in many ways to be a part of the different cultures. You know, like you mentioned, I was born in Chicago on the South Side at Trinity Hospital. You know, we grew up in the Burnside community, you know, which is, you know, 87th and Cottage Grove, 90th and Woodlawn. And then in 5th grade, you know, I was able to enroll in Beta Shabazz, where I became a part and saw what, you know, Afrocentricity is and Pan-Africanism. And, you know, growing up with Ghanaian parents in the house, but then, you know, going outside, you know, and it's the hood or whatever it is, you know, whatever you want to call it, you know, I feel like I had to, like, I was trying to understand what was going on, you know, like, all right, in the house I'm eating fufu, you know what I mean? But I might go outside and go to my friend's house and they're having pork chops, you know what I'm saying? And it's like, all right, this is different. But then going to Shabazz, you know, I got introduced to, hey, we African, you have Africans on a continent, and then you also have Africans in America. Yes, we have differences, but we have African descent, you know what I mean? And I think as I got to understand that we should be like this, you know, but there is a like you mentioned, like a cultural division. It made me hyper aware of how different things are, but also how similar things are in regards to how we dress, how we eat, how we dance. There's a lot of cultural similarities. However, we may not always trace it back to the place of origin. So then we kind of think that, oh, it's just different. You know, them the Africans over there, you know, they just, you know, they whatever. Or even, you know, sometimes going back home, you know, to Ghana, and them looking at me as, you know, like the derogative term that they use. I would say derogative in a way, but, you know, they like somebody who's not born in Ghana but is of Ghanaian descent, you know, they may say that they're Akata. I don't know if you heard that word before, Akata. You know,
not that word specifically, but we have categories for people who are from a particular region, for a particular area, but now when they're from the in the United States, you almost get like declassified, like
Yes.
you lose your card.
Yes. Yeah, exactly,
So
exactly,
it's like
exactly.
you have to earn your respect
Right.
to be called a Ghanaian or wherever your parents are from.
Exactly.
Like you haven't earned that, so now you have to like prove yourself.
Yeah.
And then when you're in the city and you're in Chicago, you have to prove yourself in this arena too, and not think that you're better than someone else,
Right.
because you have Ghanaian parents or heritage and the like. So I can understand when you were talking about in this house you're functioning this way,
Right.
in this environment you're functioning another way, in your school setting you're functioning a completely different way as well.
Exactly.
And it's like either way you go, it's almost like you don't fully belong to either
Yes.
group in a way. I mean, from being mixed heritage, I have a similar experience.
Exactly.
Yep. And I think this is what makes culture all the more important, because it's certain things that like you can do to let the people know that you respect their culture, that you're aware of their culture, that to make them feel like maybe not like you're proving yourself to them, but it's like, hey, I know what's up. Like if I'm at I remember one time I went to Ghana, I might have been like 12, and it was with my dad, and I had went to a small village with this guy. His name was Komensa, and he was like one of the top Adwa dancers and Kete dancers. And my dad knew I had an interest for that because I was like one of the only boys in Chicago that could dance Adwa. So my dad like paid for the class, and I was literally like my dad gave me to Komensa for like a few days, and I would come back and be at my dad's family house, but like I would be just running through Kumasi with Komensa, so we would be like hitting like funerals. He was like gigging, you know what I mean? And there were points where I was in his house, and we were like with his drummers, and I was learning moves. But after that, we would like hit the streets, and once, like I remember one time we went to a particular funeral, and I'm dressed in like t-shirt, shorts. People could tell that that I wasn't from Ghana, or I didn't look like I wasn't born in Ghana just from how I was dressed. So I was sitting down, and it was at the funeral. Nobody knew me, and Komensa, he was dancing, and he like told me to come and dance. So I came and danced, and like literally the whole funeral was like, hey, who is this boy? Who is he? Wow. You know what I mean? And I think culturally that just kind of let them know like, okay, maybe, he wasn't born here. He can speak the language a little bit, but he's Ghanaian. He can, you know what I'm saying? I got my card. He can dance like that. You know what I mean? Same thing over here. I think one thing we think about Chicago, and just like some of like our gang culture, here, I feel like one of our love languages is handshakes. When you think about the Blackstones or the Gangster Disciples, there's a the form of like endearment, it's like the handshake, like if you shake up or whatever, or you use a particular Chicago lingo, you're acknowledging the way that the group of people do things over here. So it's almost like, hey, we accept you, or you're one of us, or you see us, you know what I mean? So wherever, like I'm always trying to, I'm such a fan of just like people, culture, history, because I feel like when you understand someone's culture even just a little bit, or about it, it's a form of respect. You know what I mean? And you kind of like disarm that, hey, you don't have a card or whatever, but like once you can say something in their language or whatever, how they sit, how they may eat, I think that kind of opens them up a little bit to where they have to rock with you or accept you in a way
that at least you're trying to relate.
Yes.
So how are you able to preserve that? Because as you stated, like the people who may have come here originally, that was back in the 60s and the 70s,
right.
They are passing away or making their transition. How do you preserve that as being first generation?
Yes.
Ghanaian descent.
Yeah, so right now I think it's important to how they say, sit at the feet of the elders, and I think that's like a metaphor, in the sense that you don't necessarily have to literally do that, but the things that the elders have done, whether it's like when the elders pour libation, I try to pay attention to that, and the words that they're using, or the drinks that they're using, even now or more recent, we had a naming ceremony for my youngest daughter, whose name is, her full name is, okay, it's a lot, maybe not a lot, but her first name is, she has two first names, Miss Ashe Sky. So Ashe is the Yoruba word, which means, it's a lot of people say it's the same as amen or let it be done. But the Yoruba philosophy of that represents the power of change. And my partner, we just added Sky to it, just to represent the higher power, the all being. So Ashe Sky Arabna means Lady Abna. Abna is the name that's given to the Tuesday girl born in the Akan tradition. And then Eson Owusu. Eson was my great grandmother's last name, so my mom wanted to give her that, and then Owusu is my last name. But all that to say, we had a naming ceremony for her this past weekend, and it was a traditional Ghanaian naming ceremony. And then we also had an outdooring. So with the naming ceremony, that's pretty much us naming the baby, but also introducing the child to the community. And within that tradition, it's led by an elder. This one was led by my uncle Ajaba, who pretty much conducted the whole situation. And during the ceremony, the baby is given like a tap of water, a tap of like something sweet, like maybe honey, and then also like a tap of alcohol. So for our alcohol, we had schnapps, which is like a gin, and all of these different tastes are supposed to represent, the different
experiences
of life, you know what I'm saying? So the hard times, the pure times, the sweet times, the bad times, just to kind of give the baby some exposure to, hey, this is what life can be like, but we're preparing you, so with that, then after that we have the outdoor, which is kind of like the baby shower, but it's like when the baby's out, and it's like the celebration, the party part. But like just making sure those type of ceremonies and traditions still continue, because we didn't have to do that, but I felt like we should, just because it's continuing culture, it's continuing I had a naming ceremony, and I would love for my, if my children decide to have children, that they also would like to uphold those traditions as well. So yeah, I try to make sure that we uphold and maintain certain traditions, whether it's through events, through what we wear. During the naming ceremony, I wore what they call entuma, which is like a cloth. So those little things, I try to make sure that I continue to do that. Even if I jazz it up a little bit, if I might wear, I don't know, some other slippers or something, just to, so I can kind of feel like me. But I think at the core of it is just, keeping alive the traditions of, what our ancestors have started and left for us.
What you mentioned the name, and we had started talking about it before recording, but I said wait,
right, yep.
Because we want our viewers to also know what does your name mean. Let me make sure I'm saying it right. Owusu.
Yes, Owusu.
Okay, there we go.
Yep.
What is the meaning?
Okay, so can I give you all of my names?
Sure.
It's not a lot. It's not that many.
No problem.
So Desmond, or Ghanaians may say Desmond. I was named after Desmond Tutu.
Okay.
Yep. So my dad was a big fan. My dad was like a big culture guy, so he was a big fan of Desmond Tutu. And then my middle name is Harold. I was born in January of '88. And Harold Washington passed in November '87. So my dad was a big fan of Harold Washington as well. So he wanted to name me after Harold. And then my day name is Yao. Yao was given to the male or the boy Thursday born in the Akan tribe. And Yao, a person born on Thursday is supposed to be like a political leader. Someone who is able to corral the people and cares about the people, puts the people first. But then my dad also wanted me to be named after him, and he's quite cool, and he's born on Wednesday, so you're not supposed to do that, but he wanted me to have that name. And then my last name, Owusu. So I found out what Owusu meant when I went to Ghana in 8th grade. I went to Ghana in 8th grade with Betty Shabazz.
How often do you go? Because it sounds like you are traveling there back and forth.
At least once a year. I'm trying to do it more. We were talking. I was saying how I want to. And my dream would be to do at least 8 months in Ghana and then 3 or 4 here. But I haven't quite got there yet. But that's the goal. But I was fortunate enough to go to Ghana. It's kind of like a graduation gift with Shabazz in like 2002. And when I went, we had like a naming ceremony, and there was a Ghanaian brother there who gave me a name. It was Owusu Echao, and he said, "Do you know what Owusu means?" And at the time I didn't, and he was like, Owusu is a very powerful name. He was saying that it means it's like a building or a tower that is so strong and so fortified that it can never be knocked down. And I was like, wow, I had never heard anybody, break it down like that, and I've always kept that. In line. And that was 22 years ago when I first learned that, so yeah.
His brother is older than he looks.
Well, then that's something to definitely live up to and strive for, but that really speaks to like the importance of the name, and that is something that is oftentimes missing in the African American experience. Like we will name our children names that don't really have a necessarily a meaning or a heritage or a tradition that's carrying a lineage, and that part of the culture is so vitally important to understand, because it connects to your purpose. Like, what are you here to do?
100%.
Why are you here? Where are you going? Where are you coming from? All of those things are critically important for anyone to connect to their heritage.
And a lot of people don't know that the names that like Ghanaians, and not only just Ghanaians, I think Ghanaians are a little more famous for it, but there's also other cultures in Africa where based on the day that you're born, you'll get a name based on the day of the week.
Exactly.
But a lot of people don't know that even those names, it doesn't just mean, oh, you were born on a Thursday. There's a meaning to it as well. So yeah, that's interesting. I wanted to ask you though, about the fact that you're born in Chicago as a good Ghanaian American, but you grew up here. Do you feel like sometimes you have more of an appreciation or a value for your culture, or even try to seek more out about your culture than some of our brothers and sisters who may have been born there and take it for granted at times? Because I see, having been there and lived there in Africa, not Ghana specifically, but in Africa, that sometimes people seem to be taking for granted where they come from, and then eager to try to reach a place like this, not knowing the type of problems that we have over here, the type of challenges that we have over here, or like lack in terms of certain culture and values that we have to deal with over here that we don't have to deal with in Africa. Like, do you notice that there's kind of that you, having been here, have more of an appreciation or value for back home?
For sure. I think it's always like, you always think that the grass is greener,
right?
Right. And I also think that it's almost like sometimes when you have things that, like, if you grow up with things like, let's say if, like, you're born with money or whatever, you come from a wealthy family, I think that your appreciation for the money or your value for it is not the same, because you didn't have to like work for it, or you didn't have to dig for it,
or you didn't have to live without it.
You didn't have to live without it.
Know what it's like not to have it.
You know what I'm saying? Where it's like, and it's like, like you say, you don't know a world without it, where let's say when you get that whatever money, or you get that knowledge and you didn't have it, you feel empowered, and then you go to a place where they've always had it, and they may not appreciate it as much, or may not realize the value in it. It's like, oh wait, y'all kind of tripping a little bit, you know what I mean? And I don't think that it's their fault or anything like that. I just think that
it's just a natural tendency to kind of like want what you you're not used to having.
Exactly, and I think that's the power or the benefit of, like, maybe not the benefit, but just like that's why we have to continue to like feed ourselves and like inform ourselves and like travel and read, because I think when you start to do that, you start to learn how important it is, how important what you have is. You know what I'm saying? But like if you're just kind of in that box, you know what I'm saying? You know, you may just kind of think like, well, this is all I know. It's cool, but you know what I'm saying? Until you leave that box, you're like, oh wow, they don't say give thanks or have a prayer before they eat or they don't they disrespect the elders, you know what I'm saying, or they don't, this is how they they bury their ancestors or whatever, you know what I'm saying, like right. Once you start kind of coming out, you're like, whoa, you know what I'm saying. I think that kind of helps you realize the significance of what it is that you have, so yeah, I mean, like I said, like I think for me, having friends, growing up in a neighborhood, where I have friends who are African American, and they may come I used to invite them to the Ghana Fest, which is like a festival that's been going on
coming up.
Yeah, it's coming up. Yeah, this is the 20th. Not just shameless promo, but
shout outs to the Ghana
yes,
Fest.
Ghana Fest has been going on since 1988. So since the year I was born. This is actually the 36th year.
Nice.
But just a time where we get to display Ghanaian culture. It's almost like a big family reunion in a lot of ways, but I got a chance to invite my friends to come to the Ghana Fest, and they used to be like, whoa, I didn't even know this was in the city, you know what I'm saying? And that would make me appreciate, like, oh man, yeah, this is jollof rice, this is plantain, this is, yeah man, get some, you know what I'm saying? And just watching them eat it, or just watching them be amazed by how our chiefs dress, watching them be mesmerized by kente cloth, it's like, I'm thinking like, wait, like y'all think this is, what I'm saying? It made me appreciate it more too, you know what I'm saying? Because sometimes being here, growing up especially, I remember just not always being like, not knowing to be proud of it, just kind of thinking like, hey, I'm different.
It's so much in the news and the media, as we all know, that marginalizes Africa or treats it like it's less than or less valuable and things like that.
So. Yeah, being afraid to be called an African booty scratcher. I remember that was a thing, you know what I'm saying? But it's like, now call me whatever you want, you know what I'm saying? Like I love, I love my culture, but I didn't at that time, even I would say before I got to Shabazz, I started kind of seeing like, oh, this is
different.
Yeah, this is different. This is like, I should be like, not everybody gets this, but yeah, I would say I sense that, when I go to Ghana, and I also sense it here too, but I think it's just the power of culture, and I think the more you realize the power of it and what culture actually means, you appreciate it, even just the little things,
And I'm sorry, because you just caught me on that note. Because culture and what culture actually means, like it's a word that gets thrown around a lot, and I would like to hear from you. How would you interpret that word? Like, what does it really mean, and what is the real value of it? Because I think sometimes we think of culture. I've seen people refer to culture, and it's like even sports could be culture. It's like what is culture? You know what I mean? Like culture usually has more meaning. So I just wanted to see from you what's your idea of it.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think even just kind of being in my role as Shabazz now, I'm trying to define and dissect what culture, really means. And I think at the root of it, I think culture is how we do things. I would just leave it there. I think if I would leave, because I'm trying to also be more simple, because I'm kind of long-winded sometimes. But if I had to define culture, I believe it's a way how people do things. And from that kind of vague definition, I think about like culture kind of being this guide to how we're supposed to like approach life, so how we eat, how we welcome new life, how we the things that we do, when life transitions, how we function in life, how we have our relationships, how we dress, how we communicate with people, you know what I mean? I think it's culture is kind of like this invisible book, that informs us in a way to kind of like keep our feet on this like path of righteousness. And that's kind of like that's general, because I feel like you can kind of dissect a whole lot more, but
clearly, I mean, but I think it's a really good explanation. And when you say how to do things, it also implies
principles, the values, the customs, the traditions, the things that you do, the things that you don't do.
That's what I was gonna say. When you say how you do things, it also implies how you don't do things.
That's it.
I think that's something that's very lost in a country where when we're based on freedom and do what you want to do. Then the idea of there's things that you just don't do kind of becomes lost, and that's where I think a lot of the misunderstanding of what culture is comes from. But I know, Giziribtah, you got your list of questions. I got one more.
Even the names.
You were talking about your work in Shabazz, and I wanted to give a shout out to Baba Sunjata, who was with us for episode 3.
Big Baba,
who you were mentioning is like a father figure for you when you were there as a student.
Yes,
he was one of the teachers, and now the principal, but at the time he was like an 8th grade instructor. But I wanted to ask you about, because I hear about your work you're doing with Betty Shabazz, your work that you're doing with the Ghana National Council or GNC, even the work you're doing with your apparel and your the drum and dance. What I see in all that you're doing is cultural, almost like a cultural ambassador in different respects, because in Betty Shabazz, you would be someone who's representing African culture to Americans, Black Americans, primarily, right? And then in the GNC, you will be representing, in a sense, American culture, or trying to help people who are just fresh getting over from Ghana to American culture or American, customs and things of that nature. How do you see that, kind of role in terms of bridging that gap, whether it be, helping Ghanaians learn about America or helping Americans learn about Ghana and Africa in general? Like, how do you see that, bridging that gap, and especially like to young people? Like, how do you see your role in that, and kind of like in general strategy to help people really see the value in each other, in culture, and relate to each other coming from different backgrounds?
It's I think it's a lot of work. But what isn't?
And I'm asking that question not as like saying I think I know the answer.
Right.
It's a big thing that we always have to try to wrestle with, because we ourselves are coming from the United States, but trying to more so acclimate ourselves to African culture and values, and also have a value for culture and principles and civilization, ways of life all over the world. But our focus is on Africa. So it's a question that's always difficult for us. We struggle with it ourselves. Acclimating to new ideas, new principles, new habits. And how's your experience been dealing with that?
I think and this is me speaking from a point of process, or a point of I'm learning as I'm going, but I think at the base of it, just being a creative or artist, I look at everything as like an idea, or as like creating things, so whether that's creating a cultural event, or creating a art piece, or creating a workshop, I think that to help bridge this gap, we have to, I think that it's important to bring people to you, or bring people together, You know, I think that's the base of it, you know, and I think to bring people together, you have to like create reasons for, or create things for people to kind of come together, you know what I mean? Whether that's music, whether that's, you know, and I think that's always kind of like the challenge, because it's like you have to kind of come up with new ways, or not even new ways, but, you know,
creative ways,
you know, to
provocative ways,
you know, yeah, just to because, you know, I think the more we come together, the more we realize like, oh wow, y'all do that, we do that too, or oh, you all eat that, you know what I mean? And I think you have to do that in different ways, you know, whether it's, you know, on a festive level, but then also it may need to be more on a political level, you know, or it may, you know, if you take, for example, you know, I don't know if you guys been, you know, paying attention to like the whole Kendrick and Drake beef, but when you look at Kendrick's song, the whole "Not Like Us," that's kind of has become like a West Coast anthem, you know, like you know, the West Coast of hip hop have kind of like galvanized together. And I think that's the power of like music, you know what I mean? But I think that, you know, what I'm learning, you know, right now, you know, just in trying to put culture at the forefront of things, I think I've been really just trying to figure out how to kind of make things intergenerational, you know, whether it's an event or let's say like this past year when I was at Shabazz, I did a speech and poetry fair with a brother by the name of Justice Poe. He's a great writer, great poet, you know. He came in and, you know, we pretty much put together like a small writing program where he worked with both campuses, Betty Shabazz and Barbara Sizemore. We worked with students and also Mama Mark, so she helped out as well, and just kind of just worked on some, you know, just strengthening their writing, their creative writing. And then at the end, you know, we had like this almost like, not necessarily like a poetry jam, but somewhat like it was more like a poetry circle, you know. But we invited Baba Hakeem Adabudi, Mama Safisha, you know, Mama Edie, who's like a storyteller, and it was like this circle of, you know, young poets, you know, veteran poets, elder poets, you know, and each person had to share a piece, you know. And I thought it was just so cool to kind of just watch it happen, because, you know, it was like, you know, here's Baba Haki, who was a major player in like the Black Arts movement, you know. But then you had like we had a mama there who is she's a Jamaican mom, and she, like, I forget the poet's name, but she did this one piece in patois, and it was crazy. And I could just watch the kids just like take it in and try to like figure out like what was happening. But it was cool for them to kind of like receive that and process that, you know. And then, you know, there was younger kids who were just doing like two-liners, you know. But I thought I could see like what that could be, you know, on a bigger scale or in a more political form, or, you know, a social activist form, you know. So that's kind of one thing I've been trying to focus on, just kind of how to make things intergenerational. Because I think one thing that I'm noticing a lot in within like the Shabazz community is that, you know, when I was there, a lot of the parents, and this is like 98 to 2002, you know, but a lot of the parents, you know, were familiar with Pan-Africanism or Afrocentricity, whereas now, you have parents who are not familiar with, you know, those type of things. However, they know that the school provides culture, you know, and they encourage the students to be proud of their, you know, ethnicity and their culture. So they want the kids to be a part of that. But I think for me, it's like, all right, this is an opportunity to
also educate the parents.
Yes, you know what I'm saying. But then, you know, how you, like you said, in a way, have to. I don't know if the word is provocative, but like figure out a way, maybe. Seductive might not even be the word either, but, you know, inspire. I think inspire might be the word, you know, to even want to participate or want to be informed of it, you know what I mean, but to make it open enough and intriguing or interesting enough so that, you know, they participate as well, you know what I mean. Right. So this is one thing I've been trying to figure out, you know, but I think bridging the gap is kind of like, it's a continuous conversation. So I think just figuring out models, you know, to models, frameworks, and systems to have that conversation constantly, you know, because I think it's also important to do it like how you mentioned, like I know people mention like sports culture or entertainment culture, you know, I think those are kind of like subcategories, you know,
right.
where you can infuse culture, but you just have to be intentional about it, you know what I mean? But you know,
but those are the things that people mostly find interesting.
Exactly.
But there's a lot of nuances to culture that you really have to get through. Subtle stuff, like even how you just eat. You know, I was eating with some brothers from Togo, eating some fufu, and they were showing me like, no, you're supposed to scoop it like this, and I was like, I thought as long as it got in your mouth, it's cool. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't drop any sauce on my clothes. I thought I was good. You know, it's like, no, there's a specific way you're supposed to scoop it. Like, these are the type of things that people don't really, you know, get to see through a lot of the outward cultural expressions that we're more so used to seeing with Africa, like the dance, the art, the masks and stuff like that. There's a lot more subtleties involved than just those outward expressions.
Yep.
In terms of you know, we bringing people together, we talking about bridging the cultures, but I like that you mentioned also bridging the age gap, because that's also a big issue that we deal with. And I think you know, if we have more people kind of who are older and have experienced the results of a lot of the divisions that we see, that we tend to emphasize when we're young, then that could probably be a very good influence on the youth as well, and help with the open-mindedness. I just wanted to say that real quick, but Giziribtah.
Yeah, because when we're talking about that bridging the gap is one big thing, and then preserving what you have is another, because so oftentimes when you come to a place like America, where it's like there's this melting pot, it's very easy to like lose your culture in there 100%. Because you just start blending in and fitting into what's here, going to the baseball game and going to the sports arena, hanging out and doing the things that are just commonplace here in the Western world. But in reality, like the culture and the values, the principle, the glue that holds societies together is in traditions, in the villages, in, you know, the wisdoms and the traditions of scooping it like this. You know, for us, it may seem like a nuance or a subtlety that there's no importance to that. But when you even learn the history of why they even say that, why they do things the way that they do, there's like a reason, a principle, something that they're trying to preserve. So for a modern person to come and just say, well, I'm just going to eat it the best way that I can, I didn't spill it on my shirt and this and that and the other, well, now maybe you're missing the essence, the magic, something else that was in there, the reason why they did it a particular way.
Well, and you go step by step, right? I mean, I'm not start by not skidding it on your clothes, and then you can work your way towards the proper way to eat. But sometimes I think people like get the introductory part and they just happy with that, and they don't go further to the deeper things, the deeper way to do things, the deeper reason for it, and all of this.
That's my point. I'm saying, like, not to lose that the value, the undertones, the true history, the true culture behind it, because it's easy to go to the African Fest, it's easy to go to the Ghanaian Fest and see
watch Black Panther
and think you got something, and it's like you miss the magic of it, because if you're only seeing the surface, if you're only seeing the clothing or only tasting the food, getting these introductions, it's beautiful because it does at least bring conversation together. It brings people together. It gives you an awareness, an exposure to something like, I didn't even know this existed, you know, and how that opens up and sparks somebody's interest, because so many times you'll see, especially with our Black youth, like they hate history, they hate school, and it's oftentimes because of the way the Black person is portrayed. So it's like, well, this is not for me, so why am I supposed to be enthusiastic about going to school and learning somebody else's?
Being part of it. Or if I'm part of it, it's just as like someone who's been enslaved, beaten, lynched, chased by dogs. Like, you know, there's nothing inspiring in that.
And so the authentic culture, like if people know the richness, that heritage, that's really can easily get lost if we just embrace this modern culture. We can easily lose that. Even in coming here, you'll find, like, I think they said there's 50,000 Ghanaians here in Chicago alone. And it's like
it's a lot.
It's a lot of people here, but at the same time, we're trying to repatriate and get back to Africa and reclaim our culture and our roots. But because we have that gap, that's where the challenges can come, because you don't have like that deeper understanding. So we were talking to Woodson Brothers a couple of weeks ago, and how it's important to be able to blend and come together with the masses, but at the same time being able to preserve the richness of your authentic culture from the elders, from the wisdom keepers, and all of those things. And that's what's like so critical, that we don't lose that in the traditions and get lost in the I'm gonna eat it the best way that I can.
Because there's so much that's like just diametrically opposed.
Sure.
When you talk about like African culture and how people function in African culture, the African values and all that, that's totally different, totally even opposite, or like, you know, contradictory to American values, American ways of life. So, you know, that's the part that's difficult. It's like when you're in a place and you kind of have to conform to the way people do things there, and you don't really get to be around people who are doing things the way that your people traditionally have done. It's easy to lose your way there. And I think I want to ask you now, because you know, we're in the middle of what's many people are calling a migrant crisis, and many people coming over from Africa, from, you know, Venezuela and whatever, a lot of people coming over here. And I imagine that you're working with some of the people who have come over, whether it's legally or illegally. I guess since we're on the culture topic, like how do you kind of advise them in how to move forward? And, you know, I mean, aside from just basic stuff like resources that you share with them, which I'm sure they definitely need and value, but like just in terms of kind of, I don't want to say cultural assimilation, or, you know, maybe even protecting yourself from the cultural assimilation.
Right.
It's like, how do you advise people on the cultural level?
I think that's a great question. So I have had some recent experiences with just, you know, working with, you know, a few, you know, Venezuelan family throughout like maybe like the past 3 months. In October, I started a free laundry program with like two violence prevention organizations. So the idea, you know, was to you know, provide a resource, but something that I felt, you know, the community could use. And I know laundry is like a huge thing, you know, for some families. So every third Thursday of the month, we have a free laundry day. The name of the program is So Fresh and So Clean Laundry Project.
Okay.
And we wash at Chatham Laundry, which is located on 724 East 83rd Street. So right off 83rd and Cottage.
Okay.
Yep. And we've been having some of the Venezuelan families, you know, just come through to wash, you know, and, you know, just, you know, when they're there, you know, I just encourage them to talk to people, you know what I mean? And to, you know, just be a part of the community, you know. And I think from that, you know, one, I feel like, you know, it can help them just find some support, you know. And I think support is huge when you move into a new place, you know, it's foreign. But I think what's even most important too, like you all mentioned, you still have to withhold and stay true to who you are and what makes you and where you come from. You know, I think you can't lose that, you know, because I feel like our people, we are still working through that, you know. And you know, it's probably a thing that, you know, that's hard to, it's like, I don't think it's one answer, you know, but I think at the root of it is really just staying true and authentic, you know, to where you come from, you know. and that's whether that's through dress, whether that's through, you know, when you go home at night, you know, whatever prayer you say, you know, whatever traditions or customs that you have when you all eat, you know, just maintaining that sense of tradition, I think, is important, you know, as well as still kind of navigating through this new society, this new climate. You know what I mean? Like, you know, I mean, that's what we teach our children. Like, you never should forget who you are and where you come from, you know, but I think you still should be open to seeing how people do things, you know, almost in a way to kind of not necessarily compare and contrast, but just to kind of just see the differences in things. You know what I mean?
Horizon.
Exactly. I was actually talking to Baba Drew. We had a conversation about that. We were speaking with a young man, and we were just saying, hey, man, there's nothing wrong with how you think, but, you know, you also have to understand that, you know, you're doing yourself justice by just broadening your perspective, you know what I mean? And just kind of adding to what you already know and informing that, you know, but you don't want to lose who you are, though. Mm-hmm. You know, and I think that's important. You know, I'm hoping that, you know, they're able to, you know, like I stay on 58th and Calumet, and the building next to us, there are some Venezuelans in that building, and I think there's some type of cup going on, some type of I don't know if it's like the Euro Cup or whatever, but Venezuela was a part of that, and I could hear them going nuts like every time like Venezuela, you know, played or scored a goal, you know, and although that's very like trivial and kind of little, you know, just that sense of pride, you know what I mean, I think is at the core of it all. Like, you know, be proud of where y'all come from, you know, and even just the struggle, you know, that they're going through. I think, you know, there's always a beauty in struggle, you know, so just kind of, you know, understanding that they're almost in a way pioneers, you know, and just being and walking in that and being proud of that, I think is crucial.
Do you run into a lot of Ghanaians? Because we know, you know, some people from our communities in Africa who have come over from Togo, and they've taken the route of flying into Brazil and then going through that route overland to California to finally make it, you know, through the open border. And do you run into a lot of Ghanaians who are taking that route?
Not really. However, it does.
Or even Africans in general, like come from.
So I have heard that one of my aunties, and I recently just found out this from my mom not too long ago. There's an auntie on my dad's side. She got here by going through, I don't know if it was Israel, if she ended up in Israel, but somehow she had to go through some type of tunnel through like San Antonio or something like that.
A tunnel?
Yeah, it was like an underground type of situation. Yeah, but this is like maybe like 80s or something like that. Yeah.
Trump era maybe, or
probably. Yep. And I don't know all of the specifics, but you know, it was kind of that situation, which made me just kind of, you know, just sit and kind of reflect, like, wow, you know, this is, you know, it's just, you know, just kind of think about just the struggle of certain journeys, you know what I mean? You know, so yeah, that just kind of came to mind when you spoke of that, but I haven't heard of any like recent things.
Okay.
You know? But I will ask though, just to kind of see what's happening these days.
Okay.
How about people who are mesmerized by the prospect of coming to America, and then when they get here they realize it's something different than what they were expecting? Because I would imagine that there has to be just a shock value,
for sure,
where what you may have perceived in your mind or what the media will tell you, because we'll hear people even today will say like, are the streets paved in gold?
Exactly.
You know, they'll ask you like crazy questions like this, you know, is there really milk and honey this way? And it's just like, oh man, it's just too much marketing on that note.
I'm running a summer program, and we were just downtown the other day doing a field trip, and we walked past, and there's like this building, and like we saw a homeless man sleeping on the street, like in front of one of these big buildings where people are like, wow, this is downtown, it's so much better here. And then you see someone just here, and then and then I took a picture, because, and the kids are like, why would you take a picture of him and sleep and everything? I'm like, well, there's people in places in the world don't believe that this is happening. Like, this is right here downtown Chicago, and I look up and it's like 2 or 3 other people just sleep next to this building.
Wow.
So with that being said, when people come here and they may get that culture shock, are there those who say, well, you know what, life may have been challenging back home, but I think I can make my way back to Ghana or back to Africa or back to even come back and forth to take some resources there, or to rebuild their villages and communities there, and not just preserve it all here, if you will.
Yeah, I think it's I don't know if it's a black thing, a Ghanaian thing. I think naturally we kind of have like this form of like we have like a resilience, so I will 100% say though that I feel like it's a culture shock when you get here, just from hearing stories of my parents and my aunties and uncles, my dad came in the 70s, and I remember him telling me stories about how if he would, I think he would have to, he worked somewhere like across like Cicero, and back in those days I think it was like heavily, and he said he remember being on the bus one time and being called a nigger for the first time, and he was just like, he didn't even know what that was or what to do with that, you know what I mean? But it was still like, hey, I'm here, trying to, achieve something more, you know what I mean? So I kind of have to push through this, I think that, what I've seen is that, that learning curve or adjustment curve happens, but I think what helps that is being able to have like you're saying, there's 50,000 Ghanaians here, so just having like a support system where you can kind of go to, whether that's Ghana National Council or an organization that you can kind of go to almost like as like a safe haven, you know what I mean? To kind of just help you process, reset, you know what I mean, to be able to kind of tap into that resilience, to continue to go on and remember like why you're here, like you're saying, my dad told me, he went to when he first got here, the goal was to get an education, and he was going to Malcolm X at the time, but wasn't able to really work and go to school, so he had to stop going to school, to make money to continue to send to his family back in Ghana, so I think the goal is always to to come here, to like you're saying, gather those resources and send them back. I think it's just figuring out how to again stay grounded, not lose yourself, and remember kind of what the mission is, because like I said in the beginning, you always think that the grass is greener, and once you see that, hey, whoa, they got these crazy skyscraper buildings over here, but you still see poverty, you still see the imbalance, you see you see all of it, and you're like, okay, wow, now my perspective is broad and it's wider now, you know what I mean? So yeah, I think that's kind of what happened. I think people come and they kind of see like, oh wow, my scope of the world is much, I get it now. I kind of see why people in America aren't always proud to be, of America.
And I heard that you all were in the process of either building or developing a Ghanaian community center. Is that something that's still underway? Yeah,
that's something that's been kind of been in the works for like a lot of years. I think that I'm hoping it comes to fruition. And I also kind of want to help contribute to that, because I think that space is important. Obviously, like I'm even coming in here, I feel you can feel just the sacredness. You can also feel just the hospitality, the warmth of it, and it's for us, you know what I mean? So my hope is that, that still happens for, for the Ghanaian community, But yeah, that is something that's still in the works.
Could you tell us a little bit more about what's it like a little bit? You know, I don't know if there's anything that's maybe private or secret about the GNC activities that's just kind of for Ghanaians or whatever, but if you could just
your
talk
secrets, please.
if you could talk about some of the stuff that you think, you know, the public would be interested in about what the organization does, maybe what some of what your role is in the organization, and even how people who are not necessarily Ghanaians or not born in Ghana, or such as yourself, like descended directly from Ghanaians, you know, but how, if there's anything that you could see where other people from other cultures or Americans could get involved, either get involved or just, you know, come see some of what you do. Like, I know you have the Ghana Fest coming up, for example, but anything in general.
Yeah, so the Ghana Fest is like kind of one of the biggest, the bigger like projects. You know, we tend to work on that almost like
year round.
Yeah, you know what I mean. You know, and you know the idea for that is to just welcome people who are either interested in the culture, should be interested in the culture, to kind of come and learn more and be a part of it. I think a big mission right now for the GNC is creating more relationships, you know, with like-minded organizations, you know, because I think right now, like, you know, a lot of the leadership is older, you know, and they are directly from Ghana. So I think a lot of times there's like maybe not a barrier, but, you know, there aren't like relationships formed with, you know, maybe let's say an African-American relation or organization, or even like, you know, a Togolese organization, you know. So I think right now what I'm noticing is, you know, GNC needs to kind of you know, or maybe not needs, but I think it's important for us to, I will say need though, because I think it's important for us to band together, you know, and continue just the work of you know, helping home, sending people, but it doesn't have to be Ghana, you know what I mean. I think the idea is for all of us to understand that we are of African descent. Let's make it better for all of us in whatever capacity we can, you know, and if they're starting with Ghana, cool. If they're starting with Nigeria, cool. Whatever. It doesn't necessarily have to be, you know, one particular country, you know what I mean, but it's more so just the people, you know. And I think, you know, that's probably why with like the festival has kind of been like that one big thing that they've been pushing. But me myself, I also think that it's important to get the youth involved, you know. You know, as you mentioned, you know, you're dealing with a youth program now. I think the earlier we can teach, you know, young people the importance of culture, the importance of, you know, their heritage and where they come from, and the fact that they should be involved and kind of aware of like just the different things happening on the continent or here that affect us, you know, and getting them to understand that they can contribute, you know, in an impactful ways, I think is like, that's important for me. You know, that's kind of where I'm at right now, is just, you know, getting the youth to understand like, hey, you know, you don't have to be 42 to help out. You don't have to be 36. You know what I'm saying? Like you can be involved at your very young age of 12, you know what I'm saying? But then also, just being, you know, crafty and creative enough to, you know, show them ways, you know, to contribute or how they can be impactful, you know what I mean? So even if that's like, I know back in the day we used to do like pen pals or whatever, you know what I mean? But just figuring out ways to have them connected to the continent, you know, so they can see that, you know, they're a part of all of this, you know.
Yeah, one thing that was powerful, you know, this youth program is at Dusabo Museum, and one day they were screening a documentary on the youth march, the children's march in, I want to say, I don't know if it was Montgomery or Birmingham. It was one of those, you know, or maybe Jackson, Mississippi. You know, excuse me for my ignorance, but
I didn't even know that existed.
You know, I'm like, I didn't know either.
Well, they had Martin Luther King was there. and he had went to jail. And when he got out, he was like, we need more people who are willing to go to jail to make this point to that things have to change here. It was like, who's willing to go to jail?
Right.
Well, it was all children who volunteered, and the parents didn't raise their hands.
Wow.
The kids all came to the city from outside the city, and like hundreds of kids went to jail. And they, that's where you saw, I don't know, you've probably seen footage where they spraying people down with the water hoses and stuff like that. Like, that's where they pulled out the hoses on them. And I mean, this was kids, man.
Right, wow.
And, that they all came and put their lives on the line, basically. And I remember one of them saying that there was, I don't know if it was them or one of the kids was like, am I gonna die today? Like, they thought they really might die, and they was ready to do that.
Right.
Yeah, you're never really too young to stand up and try to be a part of something significant. I think that's important, and I was emphasizing that to the teens. But I wanted to ask you, speaking of activism, are you following what's happening right now in West Africa with the movements and the revolutions happening?
Kenya.
Kenya, Burkina Faso, Mali, Senegal, all these countries?
A bit. I'm not all the way aware though.
Okay. Well, yeah, I was going to ask you your take on some of what's going on over there if you had been following it.
But I mean, I would love for you to, share a little bit if you don't mind.
Well, we have it, and it's something we've been talking about actually on the podcast pretty frequently. It's you have there's some military leaders took over in Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger most recently.
Okay.
That have grouped together and formed their own alliance. Like last year, the last one, there was a military takeover in Niger. And normally you hear military takeover and you think it's something bad. They took out the democratically elected president. But in these cases, there's no bloodshed took place. They just took the president out. Like, okay, you're over here now, and we're gonna take care of our people because y'all not really taking care of the people. Because I guess you probably aware of the jihadist activities and things like that that's been destabilizing West Africa after Obama and them took Gaddafi out. And should I say Hillary Clinton was on TV gloating about it, and now they still dealing with the aftermath of this crisis that they created, and bringing in ISIS and Al Qaeda and arming them and all of this. So anyway, so you have that was like the major impetus for them to take over and say, we're going to do something about this. These people destabilizing our land. They kicked out France and the French military. Niger also kicked out the American military recently, who had a base there. And they said, we're going to take over our resources and stop sending them for pennies on the dollar to Europe, just to call ourselves good friends or good neighbors or what have you. And in any case, when they did the takeover in Niger, the ECOWAS, the Economic Community of West African States, they threatened that they're going to take military action. Now, this is an economic group, but they said they're going to take military action against Niger to restore the rightfully elected president, as they called him, and restore democratic order. Now, if they're talking about democracy and the will of the people, the people of Niger are not against the military takeover, so why should people from outside impose their will of what they think the people should want? You know what I mean? But anyway, once they did that, Mali and Burkina Faso, which already had the military leaders in place, said, okay, you guys come after them, you guys are at war with us on some NATO type of stuff.
Gotcha. Wow.
And so then they were suspended from ECOWAS, and they're like, you know what, we don't want to be in ECOWAS anyway, and they left. And then they recently had a summit, so they created a new alliance called Alliance of Sahel states, you know, and then, or they call it AES based on the French translation of Alliance des États du Sahel, or something like that. And then, so AES, so they had their summit recently. Was it this month or late last month? A few weeks ago, the day before ECOWAS had their summit, and so everyone's talking about ECOWAS is falling apart now because they trying to beg these people to come back in. They're like, no, we done with y'all. Yeah, so it's there. But even then, you know, there's a lot happening in Africa now with now this new Senegalese leader. I think Guinea has a military leader now. Kenya, they're trying to kick their president out of there. So there's a lot of activism happening in Africa, to where, you know, it's reminding me of the kind of movements that we had in the 60s, you know, with Nkrumah and everybody. So I just, you know, it's been a big topic, even though you might not feel like it's as applicable to us here, but in a sense, I think it is, you know, but if you have the kind of consciousness in the interconnectedness between, you know, the diaspora and the motherland, then you can really see the significance. I mean, it's obviously significant for me because I'm living there with the family over there. So, you know, I got to have a good place to raise my children. My thing is, like, we have like the idea that there's resources here that we want and everything, but at the same time, we got to have a place to call home, you know. And right here in the U.S., it's not really, it doesn't really provide that for us in a lot of ways. So, I mean, having explored my heritage on both sides of my family, even on the white side, like, it's almost like the same reason why people are fleeing their homelands and trying to make it into the United States by the millions. That's the same reason my ancestors on my father's side came over here, is because like our homeland is in shambles. You know, I'm being treated like a slave or second class or whatever, basically property to some wealthy landlord. And then and yeah, you know, people don't realize that's really how people were, you know, slavery isn't only for black people. Like, people in Europe were slaves too. That's why they had to run across the Atlantic to get away from their slave masters. And so, you know, you run to try to find a better life, but that doesn't mean that's your home. You know what I mean? And then it's obviously, there's no need to speak about people who had to be captured and put in chains and brought over here, and then to now be feeling like, oh, this is where we're from, but the land, the people who are governing the land never really gave you a chance to be to really even just be yourself. You know, like we're talking about now, people who we're trying to encourage people coming from outside the U.S. to preserve their culture, preserve their ways of life and stuff like that. Like, slaves didn't have the chance to try to preserve it. They had to fight to try to preserve whatever they could. There was no thought of like, oh, let me throw this away for some of these big ideals. Like, no, it's like you have to fight to preserve whatever you can. And, you know, they preserved what they could. But there's certain things it's like you're just not going to be able to continue to do. And now it's almost like, well, that fight is taken for granted. Like, we don't really think about that anymore. We don't think about how our ancestors fought, and, you know, many died just to try to preserve some shred of themselves, and then forced to give birth to their children in a foreign land. Now we choose to stay here. We have a choice. We can go back to where we came from, or whatever, wherever we feel like we can live a full life. Because I think culturally, materially, we have all the opportunities here, but I think a lot of the material opportunities are because there's a lot of lack of forbidden territories. You know, that we have free market, the free market capitalism, and that is like what the society is based on. So the freedom to do whatever you have to do to make the money that you want to make. I was just watching Trump's speech at the Republican National Convention.
Last night.
And you know, one of his platforms is like, drill baby drill, we gotta just drill, you know. And you know, on one hand you could say either we're gonna drill here, or some people are gonna be drilling somewhere else and sending it over here, and then they're gonna be trying to control us based on that leverage, you know, which I can understand that. But like, you know, the whole model of we just need to consume all these resources wastefully, like we do in America. We find a way to be proud of that, but we don't know what we're missing culturally.
Right.
I guess that's a long way of saying.
No, I get it though. I mean, because it makes me think about even the cobalt situation in the Congo.
Yeah.
You know, and Apple. You know what
Cobalt,
I mean?
coltan. Yeah. It's so sad and really just egregious how we're dependent on these minerals and people are dying over them.
Yeah.
Huge.
Preserving culture, and that is really our theme that we were talking about in this series of podcasts, and that's why we were very happy that you agreed to come on and visit and talk with us, because we understand the importance of culture, and we understand the importance of community. We understand the importance of coming together to preserve what is important. And oftentimes you can find yourself even 50,000 and you're still isolated, because it might sound like a big number, but at the same time, if you're
among almost 3 million people,
that can be just an insignificance, if you will, unless you all are coming together to preserve something. And we hope that we can help build those bridges and build those gaps amongst a diverse cultural people who are trying to preserve what is authentic, what is real, what is important for societies to just continue on. Because this melting pot, if we all get swallowed and gobbled up here, you know, we'll just, you know, at the end of the day, what is the saying, like, you won't be satisfied until you fish the last fish, cut the last tree. All the resources are used up, and then you'll be figuring out, like, well, how do you eat dollars? You know, it's like, that's not the end to you know, our purpose in being here. Like, we really have to be looking at how do we preserve ourselves, and we do that as a collective. And whether it's the Ghanaian community collectively doing something, and then the Togolese people are doing something, the Burkina Faso people are doing something, the Puerto Rican community, they're doing something, and then you have this umbrella where you can come together and work together, build together, support each other in your efforts. That's really one of our big goals, is to be able to have some place where people can say, well, you know what, we're doing this over here. I'm sure you got a similar problem that you've been dealing with. And it might be the youth, it might be the arts, it might be economics, whatever that thing is. And we can definitely see, like, principles, and the authentic culture is what's, like, missing in a lot of these discussions, is because we see we're living in a culturalist society where anything goes. So when anything goes, this is what you get. And it's like, how do you bring that authenticity that's going to say, you can't do that, you know, set some boundaries, set some guidelines, bring those principles to fruition the way they did it back home. And then you can truly, like, rebuild your society, rebuild your communities, if you're building it based upon something that makes sense. And that's what the Earth Center is trying to do. And I can't say trying to do, that is what the Earth Center is doing. And we are working with other organizations, communities.
We're working to build more bridges with organizations like yours, and we would definitely love the opportunity to explore that further.
I'm 100% on board. You know, I think that's I think we're saying the same thing. You know, you know what I mean. I think another key thing I've been, you know, just kind of naturally doing, just like through the art, is documenting. You know, us today, or in recent time, real time. You know what I mean? Because even as I, you know, as I try to you know, as I work to come up with ideas or as I do projects, I'm always researching, you know, and what helps me in my research is being able to look at old photos or reading older documents, and you know, it makes it all the more important to document the children now, us today, so that, you know, I think not only are we leaving things for them to refer to, but then I think, you know, we're also able to kind of study, you know, what's happening now, and then kind of compare and contrast it to what's happened in the past, you know. You know, just even like, you know, my work in like design and fashion, you know, like, you know, looking at what beauty is, or in today's, you know, lens or whatever, you know, just making sure that like we are, you know, I for me speaking personally, I try to be very intentional with showing the beauty of our people, you know, whether it's, you know, with how we wear our hair, you know, our the way we stand, you know, our stances, with how we pose with photos, you know, to me that's all like information, you know, to it helps inform us on, you know, just how to, you know, how to move forward, or like what's lost, what's being kept, you know, and you know, I think through that documentation, just, you know, just in general, like just kind of just creating bridges and alliances, it makes me think of like this phrase that they always say in Ghana. I was like eating at one of my uncles. We had, it was like maybe 2021 or 2022. My uncle passed, and we went, you know, for his, you know, to help him transition. And, you know, we were all eating at the table, and I didn't have my food yet, but it was like some guys next to me, and they was like, "Oh, Desmond, you're invited. You are invited. You are invited. You know, you're invited." You know, which I think is like a cool way. You know what I mean? He'd be like, "Yeah, come eat." You know, but just that phrase alone, like how you mentioned, I think that, you know, we have to continue to invite each other, you know, to the table, you know what I'm saying? Hey, maybe we got some, you know, some issues going on at this table. We would like to invite you to help us kind of workshop through it, or you got some stuff going on, you know, let's, you know, I'm going to come to you guys' parade, or come, you know. I think that continues to keep that continuous conversation, you know, of whether it's culture or just, you know, being a collective, you know. But yeah, I think that's huge, that documentation, that, you know, coming to the table. And there was one more thing I was thinking, I just kind of forgot.
I love that analogy.
I do too.
You're invited.
Because we can definitely come and celebrate at the Ghana Fest on July 29th, which also happens to be my birthday. I'll be there.
Okay. It was actually the 27th.
Oh, 27th.
So the last Saturday. It's usually the last Saturday of July.
Okay.
Yeah. So your birthday's on Monday. That's why I was trying to figure it out. Because the 28th is Sunday, and then Monday. Okay.
Well, I'll still be there to celebrate my birthday.
For sure. Well, happy early birthday, though. Hopefully I see you at the fest, but if not, you know, happy early birthday. Wishing you a beautiful year.
I appreciate that.
Before we get going, if you have anything you want to say about your apparel business, or the t-shirts that you make, you know, and not obviously, you know, with the words that you have on there, there's some meaning and a purpose to what you're doing. So if you could tell a little bit of that for our audience, and how they can get some of your merch.
For sure, I appreciate that. So I have two brands. One is We All We Got, and like I mentioned, the other one is Chicago Girls Do It Better. And the idea of it is, you know, I'm always thinking of like ways to bring people together, you know. So even with like my phrasing, the graphics that I use, you know, it's to celebrate like one, Black culture for sure, but also like, you know, with these brands, I'm kind of also like trying to explore and understand, like, you know, what community is, you know. I'm always thinking about identity, you know, just being, because I have so many sums, you know what I'm saying, like, you know, Ghanaian, you know, I have some American, you know, being a black male, you know, I'm always trying to just like kind of trying to put that together, you know, and then I use kind of graphics and arts to kind of have that conversation. So I'm kind of like all over the place, like in regards to like, just the different things that I do. Like I think my two most recent projects were I designed a T-shirt for the Chicago Sky. It was like their home opener game, which was really cool. The theme was like summertime Chicago, so we're just trying to highlight the joy and energy, of Chicago summer. Nice. And then most recently, I did a T-shirt and installation with the Michigan State University African American and African Department, with some professors there, Dr. Lewis and Dr. Brown, and the name of that shirt was the graphic on the shirt was Black Girls Are the Inspiration. And the whole goal of that was to just pay homage and pay pay homage and also just pay tribute to all of the work, all of the inspiration that Black women contribute to culture. So one thing that we did for the installation was we wanted to highlight the Candy Lady, who was like a staple, in our childhood. Growing up, the Candy Lady was like, probably one of my early experiences with like Black entrepreneurship. It was a lady who sold candy in the front of her house. She kind of like had a makeshift storefront, but was also like teaching us math at the same time, teaching us how to bargain, and it was also like a place of community because all of the guys and the girls would kind of end up there, just kind of hanging out. So we recreated a front like living room, with like plastic on the couches, old family photos in the front. Shoes, fruities, all the terrible stuff. You know what I mean? But yeah. Now laters, all of that stuff that was, was terrible, but it brought us happiness back then.
Jolly Ranchers, we called it wine candy.
Oh wow! Yep.
And that you said where was that again? The installation?
It was in Lansing, Michigan.
Okay.
Yeah, at Michigan State University.
Okay.
Yep. So yeah, it was pretty cool. But nice. Yeah, I'm always just like everything I do is kind of like an extension of like, of me. So through graphics, through my brands, my goal is to bring people together. Okay. So whether I'm doing that through the phrases or like, like I don't consider myself to be a poet or, but like I'm a poet enthusiast. So I'm always, reading poetry just to kind of, understand the power of words or learning like what 6 words can, make somebody, connect to a T-shirt or, a lot of things that I do, I try to approach it as if I was like a DJ, like I feel like as a DJ, you're trying to play that one record that gets everybody to dance or gets them to kind of, feel something, what I mean? And I think that's also me being a Thursday born. I'm thinking about the people, like what's going to make the people move? What's going to make them feel, together or get them to have this sense of pride, So I try to use my brands to kind of be that type of vessel,
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we appreciate you coming aboard. If they're in, how do we get your merchandise? How do we get in contact with the?
Yeah, please. Wow.
Yes. Yep. So if you like,
we're gonna put it in the description too, but we can also state it here on the show.
For sure. Yep. So the website is weallwegot.co. weallwegot.co, and I'm a brother in the community, so you probably see me around. I'm also at Betty Shabazz most of the time. I have an office inside of Third World Press, so
Okay.
Yeah, so if you'll see me around if you don't get a chance to get on the site. But yeah.
Yeah, well, I look forward to seeing how we can collaborate and do more things together, whether it's at Shabazz or whether it's at with the Ghana and the Ghana Fest. And if we don't get this out before Ghana Fest, definitely we'll be there and show some pictures on the podcast.
For sure.
For the YouTube version of it. But yeah, thanks again, brother. And we'll be in tune.
Yep, thank y'all for having me. I really appreciated this. Much love, and I'd also look forward to working with you all and knowing that we can, build something very great together.
All right, likewise.
Thanks for coming. Appreciate you.
Thank y'all. Big piece. Yes, let me get some love.
You
Well, that was-
are invited. I love it. Sorry, what were you gonna say?
What when you say you? Oh, yes.
Yeah,
Start again. Yeah, I blew it. All right, this is gonna be one of our outtakes.
Right.
Because I'm like, you are invited. What are you talking about?
Right.
Okay, I had a biting brain moment.
Okay. Wow. You are invited. I love that. I mean, it's something in Africa. We hear that a lot. Anytime you pass by somebody who's eating, they'll be like, you're invited. Yeah. Or in French, they'll say, invité, vous êtes invité. But to hear it in the context of, inviting each other to partake in each other's culture, inviting each other to build bridges and connect. I love it as an expression and as a metaphor there.
Absolutely. And it's so genuine because, sometimes you may hear people express things in that capacity, but they're very sincere with it and they want to be able to share. They want to be able to give. They want to even share the food that they're eating.
Yeah.
Feel free to join right in. That's all about community building and connecting with your brothers and sisters wherever they may be.
Absolutely.
That was a very powerful interview. I learned a lot, and he's a very dynamic brother, and I'm hoping we'll be able to network with him and the work that he's doing. And you can see you just have one person and they're trying to do many things at one time. Mm-hmm. And if we have many hands that can help spread that work around, and then the effort doesn't have to be spread so thin. So surely there's ways that we can all get involved. Surely there are ways that we can work together and find some common ground that we can, do this thing together. Yeah,
and let's hopefully somehow connect with more people who are, maybe don't have as much to do. Those of you who are watching, our viewers, our listeners, if you have a moment, if you have the time, that's why we're really wanting to promote more our membership program with the Earth Center, with the Giziribtah movement, that we are working, just to show our solidarity with other members of the community. It's not just about the Earth Center and what the Earth Center is doing, because what the Earth Center is doing it doesn't really matter so much. I mean, it's good for those of us who are a part of it, but it doesn't mean so much for the world if we don't get involved with the rest of the world and other organizations who are doing good things. So if you want to connect with us and be a part of that, once again, check out our membership program and check out our new website. By the way, our website has been redone, and we're very proud to be reintroducing ourselves and giving more emphasis on the mission aspect of our movement. It's not just about classes, but it's about change that we want to see in the world and how we can harness the power of the transformative power of African culture, Kemetic culture, Merita culture, indigenous culture to benefit our lives and to solve our problems and overcome our challenges. Yeah, we don't want to just talk about it. We want to be about it. We want to actually do it. Oh, look, we already being about it. I'm just saying, if you want to be about it. Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, there's people oftentimes don't have a way or know a way. Like, well, how do I even get involved? Where do I start? Yeah. They may have something like burning within their spirit or heart that they want to get involved, but don't have a pathway. So, again, us opening up this opportunity to see what other cultures are doing, see how you can be an expression or help in getting people sharing that awareness. Say something there. Well, there's many things we could be doing, but it's up to us to first of all get together and see what each other is doing, seeing what the needs are and how we can contribute to fulfilling those needs. But yeah, it starts with coming together. And on that note, we have started here in Chicago to have monthly meetings, monthly members only meetings, where we can get together and put our heads together and start getting to work.
Absolutely, because one group, one organization, one person can't do it all. We really do have to learn to lean on each other, work together to find the solutions that we're all looking for.
Yes, definitely. Totally. Yes.
You're invited.
You're invited. And we hope to see you again next time on the sunny side of the street.
Yes. Next time.
Peace.
Life can be so sweet on the sunny side of the street.
And just say Shot City. If you don't know by now, I'm talking about Shot Town.